Welcome to the Mindset Recruiting Podcast. I'm Alex Rojas, your talent advisor and host. And in today's episode, it's all about how to defeat low recruiter morale. I have done episodes in the past where I talk about recruiters being stressed out, they're being burned out, how to overcome that. This episode is for those recruiters that are in a leadership role, those recruiters that are managers, leaders, or maybe for those recruiters that have fed up and they have the guts maybe to go to their managers, go to their leaders and say, hey, you need to take a look at this episode because we are experiencing this. We have a low recruiter team morale right now. And this doesn't happen overnight. This is like a virus. And what we know about viruses, especially during pandemic, is they can go undetected without being tested. It starts off slowly and it slowly destroys from within, but ultimately it can kill you. I'm going to give you the top 10 low morale killers and how you can overcome this. So this episode is all about grabbing the bull by the horns and making sure that you take your territory back. I'm going to show you how to take your team back and win in victory. So let's discuss. All right, so let's get into this. I'm going to list out the 10 low morale killers for recruiters. And next to that, I'm going to give you the 10 ways to overcome this, how to defeat this, okay? So number one, poor leadership. Poor leadership. Now, how do you overcome poor leadership? For a lot of companies and a lot of leaders out there, it's about becoming self-aware. That's right. So if you're a leader within talent acquisition, within your recruiting team, if you're a leader within human resources, or you're an executive leader, or maybe in the sales and business development area, you need to step up. You need to be self-aware on what your perception and what your reputation is all about. You need to define your culture and your mission within the company. A lot of times, if you do a survey within your teams, you can get a good pulse and understanding on what's going on. It's almost like having focus groups. Number two, weak communications. That's right. There's a lot of communication that's just very limited or lax. How do you overcome this? Is you have to be more consistent. You have to be more consistent with your communication. This means getting into a more repetitive manner when it comes to socializing the state of your company, the state of your organization, right? Being able to kind of give quarterly briefings and updates, whatever's happening in leadership, offsite, executive meetings, bring that back to your teams. You got to be able to disseminate information from the top all the way funneling down to the bottom. Number three, limited resources and tools. This will be a low morale killer for recruiters. How do you overcome that? Don't be cheap. Stop being cheap. Stop cutting corners. Stop taking away tools from recruiters. I mean, budgets are being slashed every which way possible. And a lot of times it happens because recruiters just don't use it. They don't know how to really adopt these tools. And so you overcome this by at least giving them one or maybe two tools that they can actually own and leverage, and don't threaten it by taking it away from them. Now, recruiters, that means that you have to train up, and that means whoever's responsible for working with the vendors, whoever owns those products or tools, has to provide a good curriculum when it comes to training. Number four, there is no professional growth. This is going to be a big time low morale killer here for a lot of recruiters. And so how do you overcome this? How do you defeat this? Is you have to build a career track within your organization. And unfortunately, a lot of companies just don't do that. There's very little promotional opportunities for recruiters within most organizations, whether you're on the agency route or the corporate route. You really only have a track where you can really only level up maybe 1, 2, maybe 3. Very few companies and organizations really know how to do that, which means there's a lack of coaching. Coaching is a lost art within companies. A lot of of the training and development that recruiters have to really develop on their own is really more self-enabled. So the other thing is, if you have limited career tracks within your organization, start teaching them, hey, maybe there's other opportunities in sales, in marketing, in social media. Give them a training and development and curriculum. Train them, give them options and opportunities, not just to stay within talent acquisition, but potentially go beyond that as well. Number 5, lack of engagement. This is one of my pet peeves right there. When you just have very little engagement within your recruiting team, how do you overcome that? There needs to be more investment in nurturing relationships. You have to nurture relationships. You have to not only develop them, you grow them, and you nurture them. And that means, hey, we've gotten so lazy when it comes to having meetings and developing relationships that we're so dependent on these video calls, these Zoom video meetings, team meetings, right? And even now everything is just death by PowerPoint, briefings. And really there's very few opportunities that a lot of recruiters have when it comes to team building. There's no value add. People don't really have a voice or a say when it comes to team building. I know one of my other biggest pet peeves is the opportunities when there are meetings, there are briefings at a leadership level. The first thing they say is, all right, who has questions? Very often, recruiters just don't have any questions. Maybe there's 1 or 2 questions that come out of that, but for the most part, people are very timid when they ask questions. You need to have a Q&A structure in your organization. Try to get creative to get better engagement, gamifying situations and creating competition within your team, within your organization, amongst departments is a great way to get better engagement within your organization. All right, so let's keep the countdown moving. Number 6, burnout and work overload. Wow, this is a big time low morale killer right here. How do you overcome this? Really incorporate a recruiting teamwork model. So what's happening right now is teams and companies are getting downsized. They're becoming smaller, which means there's more work, more requisitions that are now falling on the plates of recruiters. And so I'm a big proponent in having team working sessions. That means everybody coming together, collaborating for a 1-hour sprint, a 1-hour block where you're getting together and maybe you're doing a sourcing call, maybe you're doing some recruiting, you're sharing information, brainstorming, things of that nature. That'll just help from that burnout, that burnout phase that a lot of recruiters go through. Get creative on, again, how to incentivize your team. There might be spot bonuses that might need to come into play, especially if you've been pushing and the recruiters are grinding. Number 7, unrealistic expectations. How do you overcome this? Is by being more transparent. That's right. We need more and more transparency when it comes to this. And so a lot of times it starts with the requirements, the job requisitions. The job requisitions are just unrealistic because your hiring manager says these are our needs, and they have not even thought about what's going on in the supply-demand marketplace. And this is where hiring manager relationship, partnership is really critical, and it's important. And so if you have difficult, high needs that need to be filled that are very challenging, come up with different ways on how to incentivize, but be very transparent about your metrics, about your goals, and how do you track all of this. And more importantly, be able to provide regular updates on how people are doing individually and as a team. Number 8, it's micromanagement. This is a terrible one. And how do you overcome micromanagement? You got to be more flexible. Being flexible is key. So if you are managing a team, it's okay to be a manager, and I look at it as more oversight. Having oversight is okay. It's even okay to micromanage maybe very entry to junior level recruiters, and maybe even at the mid-level range as well. But once you're about that 1 to 7, 8 years of recruiting experience, I'm talking about consistent recruiting experience, at that point, you have to give a lot more leeway to recruiters that have 8 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years of experience. You should be leaning on them more than micromanaging. So don't be a micromanager. Number 9, negative environment. That's right. A negative team environment will absolutely bring upon low morale within any team. And how do you combat that? What do? You create fun experiences. And this is like a no-brainer. It's almost like a common sense thing, right? But if you have gossiping going on with your team, if you have drama, there's a lot of drama within teams in corporate America these days, or you have just recruiters that are just dumping, that are just too much venting, right, behind the doors to each other, right? So you overcome this when you create better experiences, but you have to really get good at problem solving and looking at challenges. But even more important than that, you can create a lot of great fun experiences when you bring rewards and kudos and recognition to your team members. And then this kind of slides into the 10th reason why recruiters have low morale right now on your team. It's because of low salary, or because they've had rate decreases or a lack of rate increases as well. And how do you overcome this? You got to focus on retaining your talent, the best team members that you have on there. And that means understanding what is the pulse on the recruiting marketplace look like right now. How are you incentivizing recruiters? Is it just a base salary and an annual performance at the end of the year? How long can you sustain that year to year to retain your talented? Are you giving those spot bonuses that I mentioned? What kind of rewards or even awards or recognition or banquet nights or trips for holiday weekends or whatever, weekend getaways? There's a lot of different things that you can do that can create loyalty when it comes to retention. These are your 10 low morale killers within any recruiting team in any organization. And these, I just laid out for you the 10 ways to defeat it and to overcome it. Okay, so I'm going to give you a coaching tip here. So I want you to go ahead and rank and stack that top 10 list of what I gave you. Start addressing these issues that are at hand. Do not let this virus of low morale within your team to bubble up to the top before it becomes too late. When was the last time that you put together a survey, an anonymous survey, where your teammates could actually come to you with confidence and address issues and concerns that they have? Or do you even have an open line of communications with your team, right? Are you approachable? Or when was the last time you had a really amazing team outing, an offsite, a team building exercise? Whether it was offsite or virtual, it does not matter, but have you put some thought into that? The concept of team, of winning, of high performance has really turned more into individualism, into a losing mindset, and more importantly, it's become very mediocre. The American corporate culture right now is at risk, and it is time to revolutionize the way that we as recruiters are doing business, because the pioneering is here. It's called artificial intelligence. Artificial AI tools are here to start doing all the mundane tasks, the transactions that recruiters don't want to do, can't do anymore. So it's time to rethink and recommit the way that you do business. I hope this episode was informative. Please remember to like, to subscribe, to comment, and share. Until the next time, remember, it's all about your mindset.